I expected y'all to leave by now. But we are at our last expert. I hope you walked away with some lessons, some life lessons. What an amazing conversation. Let me get another. Thank you so much, ladies. And you're going to stay, yes? They're going to be here because I'm taking them home. I know they're not going anywhere. They're living with me right now. But so our last expert, and I want to thank, I know it's not me. This has got to be a God thing because you all are still here. And somewhere you were touched or inspired. I think some of my friends are not leaving because they're like, I won't do that to Sunita. So thank you for staying. But our last story is going to be just something that happens all the time. And you're going to hear about another mother and daughter team. Is Amina here? Amina? Oh, there you are, love. So single mom gets married and is just, lack of success with the whole relationship thing and finally finds a guy. By the way, her mother told her about the guy. So she's there. They're having a great life. They have their first child. And they're hit by a drunk driver. She takes her left hand and reaches out for her fiancé, and it's a mangled pool of blood. She notices that her daughter, one was ejected from the car, the other one was thrown out. With broken bones and broken ribs, she rolls on cement and glass. I don't know if you can get that, like rolls her body to go attend to her daughters. Today, she works for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Aziza, come on up, honey.
Amina? Yes, that's my daughter, Amina. She might run away from us in the middle of it. Totally okay, baby, totally okay. I'm going to stand up for the first part of it because I'm used to kind of standing up and moving around. I feel a little bit of comfort doing so. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for the panel, and of course the expert stories. You guys are so courageous, and I'm so truly honored to be a part of Dream Week. Also a product of Dream Week as well. Last year I kind of stumbled upon Dream Week, and here I am at an event of Dream Week and also hosting my own event at Dream Week in a couple of weeks here. So thank you very much all for being here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. Of course, my name is Aziza. It's a funky name. I wasn't a fun name growing up as a kid. My name's Aziza Salama, so sometimes they would call me a piece of salami. Not fun, very clever kids, very clever. However, born and raised here in San Antonio, Texas, love my Spurs, love my Spurs. And my father is of North African descent. He is Libyan from Tripoli, Libya, and God rest his soul, he passed away in 2012. My mother is also from actually San Antonio, born and raised, right around the corner right here in the Apache Courts, if any of you guys are familiar with that, kind of the hood, a little bit rough around the edges. So I get the best of both worlds. My father came from a very wealthy socialite family in North Africa. So he came over here and he met my mom, and he loved his little Mexican woman, and they ran off and eloped when she turned 18 in Vegas. And 6 years later, she had me, her first child, the oldest, also her favorite. Nobody's here to contend with that. So for the most part, that's a little bit of backstory about myself. I am a Roosevelt High School attendee back way back in the day. And I met Amina's father when I was about 15 or 16 years old. Of course, I knew everything there then, right, Amina? We know everything at 14, 15 years old. And so I knew everything then too. Little did I know I was gonna be a teen mom. And I had my daughter at the age of 17. Up against the world, my dad disowned me because that is not of our culture. That's a big no-no. He disowned me for a short time, but he still loved me, so he accepted her first, and then later on down the line accepted me. But for the most part, I've dealt with adversity my entire life, what it seems like, because I was just kind of born into just different. I wasn't really accepted in the Hispanic community because I didn't really look Hispanic and I didn't really speak Spanish and my name wasn't Hispanic. So sometimes, it wasn't very accepting. And I won't even get you started about my Libyan side. I mean, it just didn't work out so much. But, God bless them. God bless us all. However, so that's just a little backstory about me and how I had my daughter at a really young age. And so the majority of my life, I lived as a single mom. I never had the opportunity to go to school because my number one purpose and goal was to make sure that my child, again, had shelter, food, water. And so as this lovely mother right here, this team right here can also attest to, the majority of my time I spent working. Right, Amina? And Amina would tag along with me. She was always like my greatest partner in crime. I worked as an insurance agent for several local insurance companies here. And I did really well. I grew within the company. I hit all kinds of goals that they didn't expect me to. I broke records. And I was just extremely great, but I never really had luck in finding love. For whatever reason, maybe I was a single mom, maybe because I was always working and I never really had the opportunity to be out there and dating. But luckily, my mom, one day, me and my mom were having a conversation, and I was telling her, Mom, you know what? You don't know what it's like, Mom. You have Dad. When you want to go and complain and lay your head down on your pillow next to someone, you've got your companion. You've got someone that's going to protect you. You know that you trust that person and there's loyalty behind it. You guys have been married for 30 plus years, blah, 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 blah. You just don't know, Mom, what it's like to be a single mom. Never have, never will. And so my mom said, okay. So one day, me and Amina, and I think this definitely has God's name written all over it. One day, me and Amina were laying down. What movie were we watching? Heaven is for Real. We were watching Heaven is for Real. It was our movie night. We pushed the TV up to the end of the bed just to make the TV look bigger. We had a small TV, but it was a lot bigger when it was closer to you. And so we were watching Heaven is Real. It was probably about 12:30 at night. And my mom keeps calling me, and I'm like, I don't want to talk to her right now. So I ignored her call the first 2 times. And then I was like, okay, it's the 3rd time. It's after midnight. I'm going to answer this phone call. So I roll over, and I answer the phone call, and my mom's like, I got you a date. And I'm like, Mom, no, Mom, just stop. And she's on the phone, and she's got this gentleman right next to me, and she's like, I got this date. He's great. He's fantastic. He's tall. You'll like him, da-da-da. And, she's trying to sell him on the phone to me. And I'm, in the middle of, crying my eyes away, cuddled up with my, at the time, maybe 9, 10 years old. And I'm just like, Mom, stop. She's like, I'm going to show him your Facebook. So when he sends you a friend request, accept it. And I said, okay, all right, Mom, okay, fine, whatever. So I get a Facebook request, and then later the next evening, I remember it was a Saturday night that happened, and then Sunday came around, and I get a call from this gentleman, and I'm like, who is this? And I'm not the type to chat away to anybody. If you're not in my bubble, we're not friends until you're allowed to be in my bubble. And so he calls me, and he's like, your mom showed me all your Facebook pictures last night, and we went through all of your pictures, and I really want to meet you. And I'm like, oh, okay, great, Mom, showing him all my Facebook pictures. So he convinces me. He convinces me to see him. And I said, you know what? I'm a busy woman. If you want to talk to me, I have a 45-minute break, and I like Bill Miller's The Poor Boys with Pico de Gallo on the side. Bring it to me on my lunch hour. We'll go sit at the tree. And he was like, okay, I'll be there. And sure enough, the following Monday, it was a Sunday evening, that Monday, the next day, he comes to my job, and he brings me this, this poor boy, and, he forgot the barbecue sauce, so he got his first strike that day, but we worked through it. And so for whatever reason, I just felt instant connection with this man. And he had never had any kids. He was divorced or going through the process of divorcing. He didn't have any kids. He had been trying to have children. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. For like 10 years, he had been trying to have children and never had a child. And so I got, at the time, my one. And I'm like, this is my one and only. We're rocking and rolling for the rest of our lives together. There's no new friends in this circle. But, I met Johnny. And, long story short, we fell in love, had a little baby. He was so excited. Amina, can you hand me that sign right behind you? He was so excited to finally be a father and to be involved in having this family lifestyle. He preferred to do barbecues on the weekends versus going out with his buddies to the bars and hanging out. I mean, he was a man of all trades. He was in the Army, he was in the Navy. I mean, he was tall, handsome. He looked like a bad boy, but he was really a good boy. Like, I was the bad one in the relationship because he had all these tattoos and he was like 6'3", and he would walk in and a room would feel very intimidated because his presence, just kind of his demeanor, you could feel it throughout the room. And I, myself, 5'2", almost an entire foot shorter than this man, was probably a lot louder than he was. And so Johnny was just amazing. However, on February 28th of 2016, on February 28th of 2016, it was a Sunday evening, just like a normal Sunday evening. I wanted tacos, sure. I wanted tacos. I didn't want to, go and buy food. It was Sunday. We wanted to do a taco run. So we decided we were going to head to Las Palapas. It was about 9:30 at night, and we were on the corner of Walsham and 35. If any of you guys are familiar with that area where the Las Palapas is on the access road, we went to go get tacos, and we all hopped into the car afterwards, just a regular Sunday evening, something that anybody would do. There's no difference. We were just gonna go get tacos, go home, relax, be ready for our Monday, take on the world, same routine, nothing different. I'll tell you what, things were different that night. Unfortunately, we got in our car, and Amina, this was a poor decision on Mom's choice, and I'm okay to acknowledge that because I've fixed it from that point. Amina got in the car, and she didn't put her seatbelt on. She didn't put her seatbelt on. The one simple thing that people always tell you to do is get in the car and put your seatbelt on. Mina didn't put her seatbelt on. She got in and she sat right next to her sister in the car seat. At the time, her sister Amila, my little one, me and Johnny's little girl, was about 7 months old, I want to say. It's all a blur at this point sometimes. And she was asleep in her car seat, and Amina got in and leaned on her car seat, and without thinking, we get in the car, we pull out, and we drive off, just like a normal evening. And so, anyhow, there we go. We pull out. We're at the traffic light, and if all of you guys are most likely drivers, so I'm sure you guys are familiar with access roads and how they belong one way. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for that night. There was a vehicle that was sitting directly in front, or parked directly in front of us. It was like an SUV, a black SUV. And we pulled up in our little silver Camry hybrid and parked directly behind it. And waiting for the light to turn green, minding our business, law-abiding citizens, just getting tacos on a Sunday evening. Light turns green. So we follow the vehicle that's in front of us as we're supposed to. We are following the law. We are minding our business. The vehicle in front of us swerves out of the lane because they see a car coming at them at about 60 to 70 miles an hour. I mean, he is like hauling. We didn't even get a chance to even see what was going on. I just remember at that moment, and I always say this in my stories when I share my story, is that me and Johnny were arguing over who was gonna rule the radio station. And so I just remember looking at him and telling him, yeah, I'm gonna put it on country, and reaching over and having my hand, this hand like this, and this hand like this. And so I'm reaching over, imagine the mic not being here, reaching over to turn on the radio. The moment I turn on the radio, because I was gonna win the argument, to put on my country, I look up, and suddenly I just see lights. Okay, so this is where I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say about this. Because as I said before, my mother was Hispanic, so of course that's a Catholic religion. And then my father, my late father, was Libyan, North African, which is of course a Muslim religion. And so living in our household was oil and water all the time. And so I grew up learning about both religions, but predominantly more Islam because that was my father's religion. He was a very open-minded man. I mean, he lived here in the United States for 40 plus years. I mean, he basically left his family and started a whole new family here and said, you know what, this is where I belong. My family's here. And so I've always been very spiritual. I am very interested in other religions. I like to read. I'm very interested in Hindu culture, Buddhism, everything. I mean, really numerology really intrigues me, to be honest with you. But at this moment, when the impact hit, where this car hit me head on with my fiance right next to me and my 2 children in the back seat of the car, Amina, again, with no seatbelt, Amila in a car seat. Luckily, I had just changed her car seat that day, another reason why God was there by our side, because I had just changed my child's car seat. Before, she had the smaller car seat, but for some reason, I felt like she was a big girl and she deserved to be in a big girl car seat. So I changed her into a big girl car seat, and I'm glad I did that day, I'll tell you that much, because we got hit so hard, we probably spun around about 3 to 4 times. We got knocked so hard that the stroller that was in the back seat of my trunk ended up in the parking lot at a gas station because we were hit so hard. Now, at that moment when we were hit, and this is where my question lies, is suddenly, I don't feel like I was speaking to God. I don't think there was a conversation with God. It was more so of a feeling of an acknowledgement that I was not in control of the situation. And it's kind of like you said before about the fork road, going back to Mr. Bain's fork road analogy, was that in that moment, everything went white to me. Like, it was endless. Like, the floor was white, there was no beginning, there was no ending, there was no ceiling, nothing. Everything was just suddenly white. And what felt like was like a 10-minute moment, I'm sure was only merely a second. And when people say that things can change in a snap of a second, let me tell you, that is 100% true, because that happened to me. I was just arguing over country music, what I was gonna listen to. My tummy was full with tacos. I was ready to go lay down on my couch and watch the news and fall asleep. But in that second, things changed so drastically that the light, everything. And the feelings that I felt were so intense. They were raw emotions, and I just remember feeling like death was around me. I'd never experienced that before. I didn't know what death was like. I didn't know what it looked like, but I certainly knew in that moment that I knew what it felt like. And it was like death was around me, but I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared. I was accepting of it. I just wanted to know how it was going to go down. Was I dead? Was Johnny dead? Were my daughters dead? Who was dead? I didn't know, but I knew death was around me, and I could feel it. Like, I could feel, but I was not scared. I just wanted answers. I wanted to know, why did this happen? What was going on? And so, in the midst of being in this white Narnia place that I've never been to before in my life, I don't know if it was my subconscious or what it was, mother's instinct kicked in for me, because I had my 8-month-old in the back seat of the car. And all I could hear was a cry, and it was a cry of terror. It was a cry that I'd never heard before. It wasn't a cry that my daughter was hungry, or she was tired, or she was sleepy, or she just wanted to be loved and cuddled, or she was angry. It was a cry that I'd never heard before. And for the parents in the room, I'm sure you guys know the difference when your babies were babies, what their cries look like. If they were like, I want attention, or I'm hungry. You know, and this was a cry that I'd never heard before, ever, and it woke me up just like that. It like snapped me out of this white area that I was in, trying to figure out if I was alive or if I was dead, or who was alive or who was dead around me. Because again, mother's instinct. Don't play with mother's instinct. She's my saving grace. She woke me up from it. And the moment she woke me up from it, I just remember just like kind of shaking around and trying to assess the situation. What's going on here? Where am I? Why is my baby crying? Why is Johnny not responding? Johnny, wake up, baby, listen to me. Honey, listen to me. Grabbing him by his arm, lifeless body next to me, not responding. And then I'm like, okay, Johnny's not responding. I can't really move, but I feel like I got like an adrenaline rush, because suddenly I became like the strongest that I've ever been in my life. And my mind is just like, it's telling me, okay, you gotta assess the situation, you gotta do something, you gotta move, you know? And I've heard before that, you know, a lot of people that have experienced trauma, they usually fight or flight. And I guess at that moment, I was ready to fight. Because if another car came at me, I was ready to push it out of my way by myself with my bare hands. And I just remember looking at Johnny and trying to grab him and wake him up and tell him, baby, just listen to me, stay with me, don't go, stay with me. Because I was with my dad when he passed away. My dad had a heart attack, and he had it in the backyard of our house. And I remember when the paramedics showed up, I was there on the floor laying with my dad, and I was not afraid of a dead body, which I would have thought I would have been, but I wasn't. Like, it was my love, my honey. And so I just remember, you know, just like I did with my dad, I grabbed my dad and, Dad, stay with me, just follow my voice, listen to me, Dad. You're gonna be okay. I mean, unfortunately, he wasn't, because he suffered a heart attack, you know, a massive heart attack at that in our backyard, which was already several heart attacks in. So I had experience going through that with my dad and whatnot before I met Johnny. And so anyhow, telling Johnny, you know, baby, just stay with me, listen to my voice, focus on me, you know. Notice he's not responding. Okay, let's see how Amina's doing. Turn my body over as much as I can. Amina's on the floor, her head's like right behind me on, you know, on the little divider of the passenger and driver's seat in the back, and her head's tilted over. And I grab her by her hair, and I'm like, baby, listen to me, mommy's here. I don't know if my daughter's alive or dead at this point. I know my 8-month-old is alive because I can hear her screaming. I know I cannot physically see her because I could not turn my body around for the life of me. But I knew Amila was alive. Johnny, I wasn't sure of at the moment. Amina, I wasn't sure of at the moment. I'm in a little bit of a panic at this point, but I'm like, okay, well, I've got to get help. I can't do anything in this car. So, unfortunately, with the injuries that I had, it was a little tough to get out of my car, but I managed. I had a broken wrist, several injuries, broken wrist. I think I still have scarring from the airbag because what happened, as I said before, when I was turning on the radio and I had my hand like this, well, that airbag deployed. Let me tell you, I broke my wrist on my ribs by myself through the airbag. That's painful. That's a very painful recovery. Ribs are not fun to heal with. So anyhow, I stick my hand, because my wrist is broken, it's kind of like this right now. I stick my hand into the door to try and open the door and to pull myself out. Luckily, 1, not opening. 2, not opening. That last third one, I threw my whole body, all the strength that I had into my door, and I just kind of rolled out onto the floor. And so, rolling out into the floor, if many of you guys are familiar with Final Destination, that's the Final Destination, the movie, that's really what I feel like that scene looked like that night. I mean, it was horrible. A part of me, and the reason why I do what I do today is really because of the community at the end of the day. When I rolled out of the car and I ended up on the floor and broken glass, everything everywhere. I mean, the vehicle was a mess. I just remember looking up and seeing like 30 to 40 people just stopped, dead, like time just stopped. People were stopped in weird places. People were standing outside their cars. And the moment I rolled out, because, you know, everybody saw this firsthand from a distance, and they just saw one car driving and one car hit it head on. So I'm sure that was very traumatic for the people that just witnessed it and weren't even a part of it, but just witnessed what had just happened. And I remember rolling out and screaming, help me, my baby's in the car. And I could hear like women crying and screaming out of fear, like, oh my God, get this baby out of the car, help this family, help this woman, help her, help her. And sure enough, I mean, it was like a sea of people that just ran to the car, and they helped me up, and they took my baby out with the car seat. They didn't want to take her out of the car seat, so they took her out with the entire car seat. Thank God I got that car seat. I'm telling you guys, thank God every day for that, because she was intact in the car seat. The only thing was she had like a puddle of blood in her lap. Her whole outfit was full of blood. There was just blood everywhere. And they pull her on the side and they put her in the median. And so then they pull Amina out and they carry Amina and they lay her out. My Amina. It's a little bit hard for her to listen to, so sometimes I'll excuse her because she doesn't really know the extent to the entire story quite yet. So anyhow, they pull out Amina. Amina's on the side of the road. This gentleman's telling me, he's like, she's not really breathing that much. I'm trying to assess everybody. I've got my 8-month-old in the car seat. I know she's alive. She's just got a lot of blood. I'm scared. My heart drops. I'm thinking, oh, is she like bleeding internally? And is she like spitting this up? Where's this blood coming from? Because I don't see any open wounds. I don't see anything. And so I'm panicking. I'm like, okay, she's alive. She's bleeding. She may be bleeding internally. Just trying to accept all these really bad things that are going on just so suddenly. And the fact that I accepted them and didn't panic still boggles my mind to this day. And so then I go over to Amina, trying to assess her, and I'm like, okay, baby, she's not responding, okay. She's breathing slightly, but she's not responding to me. She's not understanding anything. She's basically a lifeless dead body there, but faint breath. Then, you know, I try to go and help Johnny. Well, Johnny was 6'2", almost 6'3". We were driving a Camry hybrid. When this vehicle came to come and hit us head on, Johnny was a soldier, a U.S. Army soldier. He had just gotten promoted to E6 Staff Sergeant. So he had always been trained in those kind of predicaments. I mean, he was a veteran of war. He got hit by an IUD in Iraq, and he survived that. Just to come home and to die in a drunk driving accident is, bittersweet, to say the least. However, he did save our life because he maneuvered that vehicle so quickly at that moment, at that slight moment where he took the entire impact. Instead of that vehicle hitting me and the baby head on, which should have hit me and the baby head on the way the vehicle was coming at us, he maneuvered that car with just a slight second. He turned over the wheel, vehicle spun a little bit, and it hit him entirely. He was stuck in the vehicle. Unfortunately, the paramedics were not, the first responders were not able to get him out in a timely manner. They had to call for the jaws of life, and by the time they got him out, he was pronounced dead. I wasn't there at the crash when that happened because EMS, the first responders, got me out of there fairly quickly. They showed up, they put me on a gurney, they strapped me down at that moment. That's the worst thing that you can do to someone that is full of adrenaline and is just like all over the place. You strap me to a gurney, it's like a slow death for myself. So they take me and my 8-month-old Amila to University Hospital. Luckily, in the EMS truck, they sit there and they go through what's going on with Amila, and that was the first bit of good news that I've gotten all night at that point, was my baby had bit down on her tongue on impact. She had her first 2 little teeth in the front, and when the vehicle hit us, she literally bit down on her tongue, nearly lost her entire tongue. Luckily, it was like maybe that much of it still left. Kids are so resilient. I mean, within 6 weeks, her tongue just naturally healed. So they didn't do any stitches or anything along those lines. But let me tell you, road to recovery is not fun when you are broken. My spirit was broken, my bones were broken, I was bruised. I have an 8-month-old baby that is nearly missing her tongue and needs to be nursed, just lost her father. On the flip side of things, Amina, my poor daughter, at the time she was 11 years old. She had no idea what had happened. She was in the hospital for 6+ weeks. When we were hit by the car, she suffered some bleeding in her brain, some major edema in her brain and her frontal lobe right here. She had fractures in her face. They wanted to do some cosmetic surgery to her. God is good, we didn't have to go that route. She had a lacerated liver, a broken leg and a dislocated hip. And so we were in the ICU for quite a while. I had to teach my daughter how to eat, how to walk, how to talk, the whole 9 all over again. And then from that point on, I fell into this really dark place, and I was just trying to figure my life out. Like, why did this happen? Why us? We just went to go get tacos. Like, we didn't deserve any of this. I was finally happy. I finally found this man that was gonna help me raise my oldest daughter, and then not only that, but we had this beautiful daughter, and we were just living this beautiful life. And no, we weren't making millions of dollars, but we lived comfortably, we were happy, we were full of life. We were always the life of the party. Everybody always wanted us at their barbecues. I mean, we were living a very good, comfortable life. And then suddenly this happened, and I had to teach my daughter how to walk, talk. I mean, she was in a diaper for nearly 2.5 months. My other one was in a diaper. I was trying to figure out life. What just happened? Why did it happen? What happened to this? Like, why? You know what? Finally, I came to the conclusion, I'm not going to sit and be a victim. I'm not going to take this as a grain of salt. I am going to go out. I was one pissed off mom, I'll tell you that. And so when I came across Mothers Against Drunk Driving, I was like, sign me up. I'm a mom against drunk driving. I am the epitome of what it looks like. I lost my other half. I nearly lost my children. I nearly lost my life. and what can I do for this community? And here I am here in San Antonio now. You can catch me sometimes doing presentations at schools. I do presentations all the time. I share my story. I try and uplift other people, and I really try and have that discussion, that topic discussion that nobody wants to talk about because it's so taboo, because a lot of people drink. And doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be a drinker. I mean, do it moderately, do it responsibly. Just don't drink and drive, for God's sakes. You know, San Antonio, it's unfortunate that San Antonio we're right behind Harris County, and we're like the top 2 cities in the nations with deaths per capita on DWIs or DUIs. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with that when you watch the news and you see it all the time. I mean, it's gotten down to the point where you see media that doesn't even want to say, well, maybe they were allegedly driving drunk. Well, I mean, it's 3:30 in the morning, you're going 65 miles an hour and you drive into a building. What do you think you're doing? I mean, what sober person would do that at that time in that area? So with that being said, I'm going to wrap up because I know we've all been here for quite a while and everybody's ready to go home and get some food because I know I am.
We've been asked to leave the building.
But thank you guys very much, and I appreciate you guys listening to my story, and I hope that you guys share the message, just not to drink and drive. If you take anything away from my message tonight, please.
I mean, if you can stay, if there's any questions, please.
Yeah, sure.
We just need to wrap up. So we're ending with really, thank you, Amina. We're really ending with how precious life is. And actually, Dr. Viktor Frankl's talked about that. It's not until we're aware of our mortality, right, that we really understand the value of life.